We changed a bit the strategy of our planning. We used to do a quarterly based planning at Yotpo, and now we moved to planning 6 months ahead, mostly from efficiency perspective. It takes a lot of time from the entire team, along with the day-to-day activities, and also the ability to already see the different themes we want to be pushing per product line, per segment, per geo 6 months ahead, and understanding that it's not about more assets and activities that we want to be doing, but how do we want to distribute them more aggressively, how we can leverage one initiative throughout a longer period of time and think in a more evergreen perspective of activities that we're basically planning. The main stages of our planning, we start first with research. So we go back to a few main data points that I'm looking at. One, and the most important one, is sales. I'm interviewing the sales team split by SMB sellers and mid-market sellers on the past quarter performance, basically why we win, why we lose, what themes resonate with prospects. I have to say that's one of the most efficient data points in order to drive then the strategy that we'll be focusing on in this marketing sales alignment, which is so crucial in B2B. Other data points we're looking at is NPS and customer success. What's happening with the existing customers we already have, what works and what doesn't and why, and how we can improve it from a demand gen top of the funnel perspective. Which messaging should we be leveraging? Which type of product supporting proof points we should be pushing out there? We look at actual revenue data, which opportunities we lost, why did we lose them, to which competitors did we lose them, to understand the bigger picture. So that's in terms of the research. Then based on the research, we go and build the strategy, which is basically understanding what would be the main themes we'd like to be pushing for each segment or each product line. So again, the complexity, I think, at Yotpo is really exciting because we have different moving parts. We always need to think about the product line, then the segment within the product line, because the pain points of an SMB buying reviews are completely different from a mid-market buying reviews. Then within those, thinking about greenfield versus switchers, right? Because the way you'll go after those that don't have a software in place at all, which is for reviews less relevant. For products like loyalty and SMS, where there's still more education to be done, completely different type of strategy rather than convincing them to switch and migrate from an existing software to us. So that's another pillar. And then splitting it by geos, because different activities are relevant for Australia. For example, we launched this year versus the US. And then channels. How do we take these activities and transform them to the distribution channels? So research, strategy, then we ideate a lot with content, design, product marketing. We work really closely with to think about the actual assets, webinars, events we'd like to be pushing to support these themes. And then we build the actual planning per channel. What we'll do in social paid, search, email marketing, events, co-marketing, who do we partner with, and put it on a Gantt. SAL is the main KPI, sales accepted leads. Usually marketing is measured and is really focused on MQLs, and we used to be there as well. Right now, the entire planning really focused on sales. Basically, I have per product line, per segment, per geo, an amount of sales accepted leads that I'm supposed to generate. I think it's a very strong and aggressive connection. We have the same language, and it reduces that friction of the blaming potential and enhances the collaboration. So sales, we also look at ACV, right? So when I look at past activities, the ones that I measure as most successful, for example, when I look at planning and I look, okay, which campaigns worked last month, what should we be replicating? It's not those that only brought the top of the funnel, the larger amount of MQLs, but the ones that already contributed to ACV, and we see closed won deals that actually brought the dollar amount to sales. So these will be the ones that I'll be replicating, not only the top of the funnel MQL ones. The sales cycle varies between the segments. For an SMB, it can take anytime between 1 to 4 weeks from a lead, then to a closed one. Then mid-market, it can take between 2 to 6 months. And then going up to enterprise, it can also come up to a year. The understanding that we need to be measuring results and looking at MQLs and MQL to sell conversion on a quarterly basis versus a monthly basis. We're very focused on monthly monitoring of all the results across all segments. So the understanding that for mid-market, it's not apples to look at the end of the month and think that's our trend. Also to look at cohort view and to understand how results differ over time. And in terms of our activities, right now we started discussing this with the sales. Many times the decision when to launch a webinar, an event, an asset that is supposed to drive mid-market demand is unrelated to the sales cycle within sales, right? To their goals of end of quarter, or where do we stand in terms of their pipeline. So right now we're trying to align on the time to launch. Also, when is the right timing to be launching new activities to drive new demand in terms of where do we stand with the rest of the pipe, understanding that it takes for an MQL to convert to a SAL around 1.5 to 2 months. Where does that meet new marketing activities that we go live with? For mid-market, nothing is fast, right? Everything takes time. I mean, you need to nurture the leads and potentially create surge within an account, engaging with multiple decision makers and personas within that company. So we try to do some activities and plan for things which are lower lift on our end, and we see that they yield faster results. For those webinars, paid efforts, events, where we send in-person salespeople, we see that it drives a faster sales cycle for mid-market and enterprise brand. And then in parallel, we constantly do the air coverage of the one-to-many. So releasing evergreen different guides that are contributing to an additional touch point, an additional engagement point that drives the prospect down the funnel while they're already corresponding with sales. So these things are happening basically in parallel. So always try to balance the different type of activities that we are planning for mid-market brands and where they stand within the funnel. What messaging would be more relevant, what would resonate better, and drive the sales cycle to be faster. Before we started the planning for 2022, we planned budget, always started with strategy. So it's what I described at the beginning. How do we approach the marketing activities? The way we plan the budget is also based on our strategy per segment, per product line, per geo. We look at past year budget, and obviously the goals keep on increasing and are very aggressive. And we try not to create a correlation between goals growing and budget necessarily growing, but seeing where we can be much more efficient. That goes to, I think, the thumb rule that we're trying to go by this year, which is less new assets or activities as a goal, but more distribution, more allocation of existing initiatives and how we can just more aggressively reuse things. And that obviously translates also to the budget. Then in terms of the budget, we're looking on the channels that require it, because some activities like email marketing, for example, don't require the budget, apart from the Marketo software budget, which is already in place. A super efficient channel. Email marketing is one of our more significant demand gen drivers. And then we look at social paid, search page, Shopify ads is a big source for us, events, co-marketing activities, and basically allocate the budget versus the potential amount of sales that we think this channel can bring for each product line, for each segment. So always that metrics. It's obviously not scientific, but to predict as much as we can per each channel as a source, how many sales roughly we think can be generated for these type of activities in order to support the goals, and then this way to split the budget. So definitely COVID pushed us. The main channel which was affected by COVID is events, where we used to be pre-COVID much more in person, trade shows. That transferred to online webinars, which turned to work out really well and drive even more demand. So looking at 2022 budget allocation and planning, we obviously prepare ourselves for much more trade shows and in-person events, but also are still planning 10 to 15 webinars a quarter. So that's in terms of events. And generally, we revisit on a monthly basis our plan. We have the plan for 6 months, but then we meet every month, look at what we released, how did it perform, what are we about to release, and that might change on the spot if needed. Also, we're trying to be as proactive, reactive as possible to specific events happening, like iOS 15, right? Something like that is suddenly released. How can we leverage that even though we didn't plan for it? What can we release on the spot? We always have the North Star of the planning. There is production allocation in terms of content writers, designers, developer to execute on the plan originally, but we stop on a monthly basis to question our performance and our upcoming activities versus what's happening in the market and what would drive the bigger amount of impact. So there's no goal to, execute just because we decided. That's not the goal. The goal is results. What will drive sales or awareness, whatever the challenge is within each product line. So iOS is a great example. It was very relevant, especially for the SMS product line, because that's something that challenges less and can solve a lot of the data privacy and the third-party versus first-party data challenges. So we released on the spot a blog post, was very easy turnover. And you wouldn't expect that a blog post, which was initiated on the spot, would drive that amount of demand, and it did. So that was a good example of something small, low lift, quite quickly released, and brought the effect that we needed. First of all, the synergy between the three of them and the platform approach is something that I always see in front of me, because it's one of our biggest differentiators, right? Why, as a merchant, you should have one tech stack for your entire marketing solutions, and what's the benefit of having one source of data, one customer journey, and how each product helps the value that you can get with the other product. So maybe your intent was reviews, but how does it help you to have in the same platform also SMS, so you can collect reviews through pushing them by SMS, for example, or how reviews can be an event and a trigger for another loyalty point to drive more points for a customer that returns and chooses you time after time, etc., etc. It's a challenge having the three of them, but also it's a benefit because of our platform approach. So the ability to see cross products and to think about, okay, a new feature came out in this product line. How does it help with the feature I know with that product line, and the combination between them, which type of demand can it drive?